Welcome to another episode of Tiger Talk. I'm your host, Don Holston, Athletic Director for Armada Area Schools. Today we have a very special guest joining us, Todd Stump, Varsity Coach for Armada Football. He's going to be talking with us a little bit about how the season's gone and some of the things that we're going to look forward to as the season goes through the last 4 games. Currently, we are 5 games into the season, and we're coming off a 13-0 win over Emily City, and we'll talk a little bit more about that when we talk to Coach Stump. So I want to welcome you, Coach Stump. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Let's before we get into where we're at right now in the season, let's back up a little bit and let's look at preseason for a moment. Okay. When you consider where your season's at right now, and you look back at preseason with maybe just practices before school started, maybe even as far back as summertime, do you see any surprises from that time to where you're at right now in your season?
I think we're seeing quite a few surprises. We're young. With juniors, we got a lot of juniors playing, a lot of sophomores playing. So some of the big surprises, like Benny Ferlito last 2 weeks has been awesome. It took him a little while to get going, but last couple weeks has been really, really good. Still, we've got, obviously we've got some things to work on as far as remembering every one of his assignments and the little nuances of playing offensive line. But his effort has been through the roof. He's been awesome. Obviously, Josh Bowman came out of nowhere the last couple weeks. Had a few big catches. Really should have had 2 to 3 touchdowns last week against Emily City, but couldn't quite haul them in. They were tough catches, but made 2 really good catches against Yale. Scored 2 touchdowns against Yale. Scored 1 against Richmond. Connor McKenzie's come out of nowhere, just a super reliable kid that understands a lot of stuff. Jacob Brown is a sophomore. Even guys like Martin Reef, who we didn't expect to play early on, has come in an offensive line. Zach Lane. We had Zach Lane. And then Garrett Volkanet, didn't expect him to be nearly as good as D-line what he is. Just raw effort. Well, he's only 5'8", just a little ball of energy, but just goes hard every play and creates havoc. So we've got a lot of pleasant surprises that we're still working on, still improving, still getting better. But there's been a lot of kids, but I'm missing a ton. There's a ton more kids. Eric Keating at quarterback has been outstanding. We're week 5 and he still hasn't thrown an interception. Knock on wood.
They shouldn't have did that.
Yeah, but he's played really, really well. Bought into what we're trying to do. Be aggressive at times, aggressive other times, just take the simple throws and nickel and dime. Our kind of mentality has changed a little bit. I think the kids coming through have almost helped mold that mentality of we used to be a super aggressive, like we're going to chuck the ball downfield, chuck it over the place. Now we're a little more, we're going to take what the defense gives us. If it's a short pass, we'll take that. If they're going to load the box, we'll try to throw the ball over the top. And if they're going to give us numbers in the box, we'll try to run the ball. We've gotten a lot of work on our offensive line, learning how to run the ball better. So we've been able to run the ball better the last couple of weeks than we have the first 2 or 3. So things are getting better. Young kids are developing, and that's always nice. And when you're young, that means you usually get them for an extra year where they're going to have a bunch more experience next year and the year after. So
okay, great. Now I know that you mentioned Eric, and you got some younger players. One of the things I did want to ask you about, you're young in some of the key positions. Do you think? Like, let's look at Eric Keating, for example, at the quarterback position. Being a sophomore, do you feel like his, I guess you could say, success of not throwing an interception, do you feel like it's decision-making? Do you feel like it's just the system that you run kind of protects him from doing that?
I think it's a little bit of everything. We've given up sacks, which we obviously don't want to do, but I think that's understanding of last couple of years. And this year has been a little bit of adjustment. Our defense isn't what it was last year, but it's drastically improving week to week. We're getting better every week. I think we kind of play to our hand note, and he understands that if we don't turn the ball over, we usually can get first downs or at least run a little bit of clock, get some success, get some yards, change field position, play that, and then all of a sudden the other team's going to have to do something to adjust, and that's when he has the opportunity where he's not having to make those foot by foot in the window throws. He's got a little more room to work with. He doesn't have to be perfect. Right. He does a great job of finding matchups that he likes. His completion percentage isn't great, but he's not throwing a lot of. He's not throwing picks. He's not throwing a lot of bad throws. So,
well, I do know, I've seen all but maybe one of your games, and I only caught a quarter of that because I was just coming out of surgery. But there's 2 things I can say about this team for sure from an outside looking in. The effort is definitely there. These kids, I don't care what the score has been in any of these games, they have never once let up. And 2, it seems like there's a lot of team camaraderie. I see a lot of the kids supporting the other ones talking them through mistakes, or a pat on the back, even if they do something that's not the greatest play in the world, but the support is there. I think that, at least from the outside looking in, I think those elements are there, which I think probably plays huge.
And I think part of it, what's happening, especially the last couple of weeks, is last year we lost a lot of really vocal leaders. We had, Vinny Cioletti and Dylan and Jackson Mahaffey and even Blake Kading and Marcello Manoni and Matt Perry and all those guys, is they didn't mind if kids didn't like them at that point in time because they were going to lead to the right place. And early on, I think our leaders were trying to not really keep everybody happy, but not really make anybody super uncomfortable. In the last couple of weeks, we've had conversations of, look, you have to lead the right place. If that means you're not liked temporarily. But you will be respected, you will be appreciated in the long haul. And I think even last week you could see that maturity happening in some of our leaders, where I'm going to do what we need to do. I'm going to get on the people we need to do it. I'm going to do it in a way that hopefully lights a fire, but also doesn't push them away from the team. It incorporates them into the team. And that takes some time. It takes some skill development.
Absolutely it does,
that's been kind of helped the last couple of weeks, where, look, buy in. And if we're going to be negative, nothing's good's going to happen. And I think our leaders have kind of bought into that, as we can demand more and maybe temporarily irritate people, but get them to play better. And then they'll understand what it takes to play better. They don't have to be talked to again. They don't have to be motivated at the same level. And they become the leaders next year. The young kids become the leaders next year, and the young kids coming in get mentored, and we just move forward.
Yeah. Well, I think you hit the nail on the head there. It's a thing that it's a learning process, and those players that are being mentored by your leaders now, they'll begin to understand why they're doing it, and then they'll become those leaders. So yeah, that's a great point. So you talked a little bit about attitude and what it takes to be a leader. Let's talk about program philosophy for a second. So share with us a little bit about what your program philosophy is, and let's talk about 8th grade to varsity, because that's you run the entire program. I'd like to just talk about that for a second.
Well, our philosophy especially at 8th grade, is we want kids playing. And I went to, we've struggled for a couple of years with losing close games in 8th grade, but competing really, really well. And people ask me, well, don't you want to win a few more games? Don't you want to go undefeated one of those years? I would love to go undefeated one of those years. But if undefeated means that I'm only going to have 11 players in 2 years play varsity football, I would much rather go 4-4 or 5-3 or 6-2, or even for that matter, 2-6, and have 25 kids out that are raring to go, full of energy, that have continued to get better all the way. Because they were 2-6, but they're probably not going to be when they get to varsity if they keep that buy-in, they keep playing. One of the things I did early on, my first couple of years, is I really didn't mandate that we want everybody playing. It doesn't have to be equal playing time, because there's no way to ever really do that. But you try to get every kid in and get them in for meaningful snaps, and get them in where they can get experience in games, playing positions that they're probably going to play. And the last couple of years, our 8th grade coaches have done a great job of getting kids into play. And our numbers this year, unfortunately, Pal Camp hurt us a little bit, because Pal Camp was the same as week 1, so we didn't get as many freshmen as we thought. But after talking to freshmen who I teach, there's a bunch of them like, oh, I'll be back next year. I just had some stuff going on with Pal Camp and other stuff. And we'll probably have 20 sophomores next year. So our numbers hopefully will pop back up, get up to 2025.
Good.
So that's kind of the philosophy there. JV, similar philosophy. JV numbers are low this year, so it makes it kind of easy. We try to play everybody. Last year when we had really big numbers, we had like 40 on JV at the beginning of the year. We started 22 kids to get more playing time. Again, trying to develop kids, trying to get them meaningful game experience. And that doesn't mean that it's 4th and 1 in the 4th quarter that we're going to play the same defense at the start of the game. Kids are going to play both sides of the ball. They're going to play multiple positions. We just want to make sure we're trying to get as many kids on the field as we can, so we can develop. I think that also helps build accountability. And if you want to have team camaraderie, you got to have a bunch of kids that are accountable to each other. Because if you've got half the team that doesn't care if they let the other half down, you're not going to have good team camaraderie. People are going to be resentful towards each other. And we've really heard on, like, if our kids screw up, one, it bothers them, and their teammates see it bothers them, so they can be encouraging. Where if you had a situation we did when I was assistant coach at a different school, we had kids that just didn't care. And that really bothered a lot of the other players, as they would screw up and it would affect the team they didn't care. So I think that just showing that being accountable has made a huge difference, and starting 22 kids helps. Varsity, we try to play as many kids as we can. I know parents are going to say, well, you don't play my kid enough or whatever, but you're always going to get that. But I literally just had a conversation with 3 kids, and it was great because they said, and this has been a huge change the last couple of years. The first couple of years is, why am I not playing more? Now it's, what do I have to do to play more? Mm-hmm. And it was a great conversation because now you bring in the team aspect of it. And I told these kids, I go, prove to me that you're reliable, prove to me that you know the calls, and prove to me that your 100% is better than the starter's 95. Or prove to me you're better than the starter, and we'll put you in. I don't care. The best player's going to play. And if we've got 12 guys that can play defensive line, we're probably going to rotate 12 defensive line. If we've only got 5, we're only going to rotate 5.
Right. Yeah, 12 guys would be a dream come true.
It would be awesome. And, we're nice. Physically small, and we told them, like, if you get me 3 good plays and get tired because you're just getting beat on by 200-300 pounders in another school, cool, we'll rotate. But you've got to show me you can give me those 3 plays. Right. If you go through the motions of practice, they're like, okay, so what you're saying is I need to give a little more practice. I need to show a little bit more practice. Yeah. They're like, gotcha. I'll take care of it. And it's awesome. Well,
those are good conversations. Those absolutely. Are good. Yeah, because I think those develop growth as well for the student athlete. You know, when you as a coach being willing to have that conversation and give them, for the lack of a better term, not sugarcoating it and telling them, this is what I'm looking for, and anybody, I mean, you guys, even as teachers, you guys are, hey, tell us what you need us to do and we'll do it, and I think the kids have kind of, have that same type of thought process where, give me what you want from me and I'll try to give it to you. So no, that's great. I'm glad that you're able to have those conversations.
And I think that's been a big change. And we're dealing with, my first couple of years, it was funny because the kids didn't even realize it, is when you go through the transition of coaches, and I'm not blaming anybody for that, it happened. But when you go through the transition, it's hard for kids to trust a new coach because they don't really know how long he's going to be here. So am I going to listen to this guy for 2 years? Then he's going to leave. He's going to resign and go somewhere else.
Right.
And so it's part of this is just building a trust, and that's gotten better every year, which I think you're seeing that when coaches interact. We got some new coaches, like Clinton Conard came in. He was at Chip Valley last year. He was the D coordinator at Marlette for a couple of years. He was a student assistant at Central when Brian Kelly was there when they were winning the MAC championships. I think it's 2 or 3. He's just bringing different energy. And then we've got a guy like Zach Benscooter, who's 6'8" and I don't know how big, but he played.
He's a big guy.
He played 1AA out in Pennsylvania, and then he also played at Northern. He transferred to Northern and played a couple years there, and brings just that another college level experience. You got Mike Sucott, and most people don't know that Mike played
Grand
Valley.
Yeah.
And half the kids on my team don't know I played at Elm.
Yeah.
Like that's not something I brag about.
Right.
And all my Elma stuff's off my wall at school, so nobody can see it anyway because I painted my room. So,
yeah.
But the kids don't know a lot of the guys that have college playing experience. So it's nice getting those guys in, and it brings a different dynamic. And we try to do it like teaching. You look at the high school, you've got a variety of teachers with different personalities. Well, our coaching staff's the same way.
Right.
So even if you're not a D lineman, if you get along with Coach Ben Scooter, that's a guy that you can go talk to if there's a problem. And I'm a guy that you can come talk to if you play a position I don't coach directly. And that's helped a lot, and it's created that trust where kids have someone to talk to. Like, if there's a problem, let's get through it.
Yeah. Having a diverse coaching staff is always a good thing because, like you said, different coaches are going to build different relationships with the athletes, and I just know from my experience, sometimes they feel more comfortable talking to a different coach than they would maybe like their particular position coach. Yep. So, no, I think that's a great thing. So,
and, the other thing we're trying to do is it kind of gets into philosophy, but it's people don't know the history of Armada. People don't know, like I talk to kids now about past coaches and past champions. They don't know. And I think that's a problem. One of the things that I'm trying to do, and I started last year in the summer, I got a little bit of information. I think this offseason I'll try to kick off some more, is I would like to get a record of every single person and their number that played in Armada that we can get. Like what year they graduated, what number they were their senior year, and then just track it. And then either paint in the team room or have sheets that we put to the wall. And so like, hey, these are the people that wore my jersey, and these are people
I think that's a great idea,
and bring some history back. I went to my in-laws this weekend, and I Ovid Elsie is 3-2, and they're playing really hard. We did 7-on-7 against them. Their D coordinator is a friend of mine. And you walk around, and I went to the grocery store, and I don't think I saw a single person in there that wasn't wearing an Ovid Elsie Athletics t-shirt.
Yeah.
That's the kind of pride that I think exists in Armada, but the kids don't always see that, and I think we need to bring that more to light. There are people that have huge amount of pride in Armada. It's our job to bring those people to light. It's not their job to come show us. It's our job to bring those people to light.
Right. No, I would agree with you. I feel like this is a great community in terms of how they support our athletic programs.
Yes.
You know, and I mean, you can look at it in any avenue you want. I mean, whether it's just being there or monetarily through donations, or buying the popcorn, the cookies, the pizza kits, all the stuff that we sell. You know, and we're a small community, and our businesses just get pounded, but they continually support our programs. So I mean, we're extremely appreciative of that for sure. And that's a great point. I feel like for us, I mean, and I'm not, if I'm being completely honest, I'm not really sure how we do that, but I want to bring that out with.
I don't know either. But I got to try something, because it's not like what motivates people. And I think, I go back to my dad grew up the same high school I did. My grandma went there. My mom was a teacher there, but did not go there. And I look at the pride of like the third, fourth generation, which we have some of those, but we also have a lot of people that this is the first generation to go to Armada, first or second. So it's a little bit different, but I remember having teammates, and there was great pride in playing for not only yourself and your teammates, but playing for the community, the people around you. And how do we build that up a little bit more? How do we make that connection a little bit stronger than what it is now? Community is great support. Parents have been really good. I ask for stuff they're really good about. I last minute changes, which I try to avoid. I still get, and they're really good about that stuff. I tweaked like I said, my first year I wanted sack lunches for the kids on the way home so they can have something to eat afterwards, and that's taken off. And every away game, those kids have something to eat. Every home game or away game, they have something to eat right after the game. That's so nice, which is awesome. We don't have to stop. We don't have to try to figure it out. Kids don't have to bring their own food and figure it out. We don't get locker rooms at away games. We just get like a team room at halftime. So, where kids can secure their stuff, that's really got to sit on the sideline. That's probably not the best situation. So, and then having coaches that graduated from Armada's help. This year, Chris Haller couldn't help us, but he's coaching 2 other sports, and he's involved in all kinds of curriculum. But Nick Erkey graduated here. Mike DeNoyer actually graduated with Nick Erkey. Both played here. Nick went to Michigan State, and then Mike walked down at Northern and played wide receiver there. So having those guys here that can kind of bridge that gap a little bit is helpful.
That's good. It's. I know, like your coaching staff. I mean, you look out there and you've got quite a few guys out there, and you can never have enough, I guess, as long as they're buying into the program and they're doing the things that you're asking them to do as the head coach. So, no, I think that's great. So let's talk about Emily City for a minute. Okay. So we got a win with Emily City, 13-0. You're right. That game could have been a lot worse. There was one. I know there was at least one in the end zone. We were standing right there, Mr. Jankowski, Mr. Musry, and I. And it was a beautiful throw by Eric. And I give the defense credit because he had his hand in there. But Josh had it on his hands. Josh Bowman had it on his hands and couldn't pull it in. But what do you attribute to that win? I mean, it was 13-0. Obviously, defense had to play great because they got the shutout.
It's funny. So Huddle's a great tool we use. It's not cheap, but it's great. And we've got Huddle Sideline, which actually is an instant replay system, and it gives us an end zone shot and a sideline shot at the same time. So I actually went and did a playlist of a couple plays at Yale, 5 or 6, and a couple plays at Emily City. And all I said to our guys is, look at the first 2 steps. We watched every single one of their play, and they go, we're attacking at Emily City. We weren't attacking the same way at Yale. We were attacking, but not the same way. Not with the same enthusiasm, not with the same strike point, low pad level. And I think it was just, I don't know if it was a different opponent. I don't know what exactly it was, but they attacked with the belief that they could get the job done more so than what they did against you. I think. I don't know exactly what it was, but it was a very different mentality.
Do you think self-confidence is
some of it? They've been getting better every week. So, every once in a while, that team that was struggling early on has that breakthrough. It starts playing. That might have been our breakthrough. It might not have. Kids played, like Nathan Noah got his knee banged up second half, so we had to throw, this is the third Mike linebacker we had this year. Josh Haley stepped up and played great, and we had to rotate linebackers a little bit because Nathan's a little bit bigger and our other backups are a little bit smaller, so they get beat on a little bit, they get tired quicker. So we had to rotate, and so kids were rotating a little quicker and doing some things differently. And then it was just, part of it is we're still young, so you get little mistakes, like you get holding calls and you get little stuff that sells drives, and we're not quite there where we can overcome a 2nd and 20 every time. Sometimes we can, but not every time. And so we're still getting better. The fumbles in the first half hurt us bad. Drop passes throughout the game hurt us. Like, it goes from a 3rd and 8 and turns into a 4th and 1 rather than a 4th and 8. That's a very different play call.
Yeah.
You got a lot more plays in the playbook to get 1 yard than you do to 8 consistently.
Yeah.
But the kids played. The kids played really, really hard. They were super coachable. They made adjustments on the fly. And they really bought into, and we harped all week on, do your little part.
Mm-hmm.
I think part of being young is you think you have to see everything to know what's going on. And Yale, we started to narrow that down a little bit. Had a few hiccups, 5, which resulted in there were 5 really big plays in Yale, and then other than that, we were pretty equal.
Yeah.
But give credit to Yale, they made 5 really big plays. And then Imlay City, we kind of zoned in and stayed within our reads and didn't try to see the whole offense. We didn't try to see everybody's block when we were on offense. We didn't try to see, Eric didn't try to see every DBs. He kind of zoned into what he wants. And people running routes did their thing. And O-linemen really needed to see their little patch. They didn't need to worry about the rest.
Right.
I think that helped because I think early on we were trying to see it all, especially against Clawson and against North Branch. We were trying to see everything on defense, everything on offense, and it was just too much information to process.
Yeah.
Where they've trained their eyes to be very disciplined of what am I looking at and kind of ignore the rest. And that allowed them to play the way they're supposed to play.
Yeah.
And it was so funny. There was a couple of times where Yale was in the exact same formation, running the exact same play as Imlay City. We put them side by side.
Oh, really?
I said, look at the difference. I said, just look at the difference in technique. And they're like, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
And so that part really helped. They bought in O-line, D-line, especially. Our DBs played really, really well at Imlay City. I was surprised at the jump they made in 1 week. Super disciplined. I was happy, disappointed in some of the mental mistakes, disappointed in some of the penalties, but I was happy with the effort. I was happy with the enthusiasm. I was happy with the way our team responded to adversity, which that's been a nice touch. We haven't done that consistently in the past. We've kind of responded to adversity every week a little bit better, a little bit better. So hopefully we can build on that and keep that process rolling forward.
Yeah, I was excited for you guys as coaches, but for the athletes as well. It's nice to see them get a win, be able to celebrate. I got to give a shout out to our student section too.
They were good.
Our student section has been strong all year. So
yeah, the baby powder at the last minute made me sneeze a few times.
Yeah, I told them they can't do that, but they never listen to me. So
I'm sitting there and also this cloud of white comes.
I know. Oh, kids, what are you going to do with them?
Yeah,
But no, our student section has been great, and we're happy that they're coming out and supporting you guys.
Our band at home game has been awesome too.
Yeah.
Josh Bobek's doing a great job.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, let's talk about that for a second because that's something kind of neat that you guys do, and you don't see other schools really do it. After your game, doesn't matter win or lose. At our home games, you guys make sure that you have time. You take time before you meet in the center of the field where your team walks through and thanks the band and walks by and thanks the cheerleaders. That's something that you guys, is that something you guys started a couple years ago?
We did that last year just last year and this year was when we started it. After the 0-9 year, which was 4 years ago now? 3 years ago?
Yeah.
It seems like last year, but it's not.
Yeah.
We sat down as a coaching staff and said, what's really going on? Like, let's take the type of athlete out. Let's take technique out. Let's take scheme out. Let's talk about what's really going on with our athletes. And one of the things that we said is there's kind of an underlying negativity. Like when things go wrong, we abandon ship a little bit, or we did. And that was with the coaching staff. That was with everybody. Okay, what's going on and why? And ironically enough, when I went to the Michigan Football Coaches Conference in January that year, they had a woman in there that I don't remember her name. She's from Bridgeport. But all she does is team dynamic stuff. And I went and listened to her talk, and it was like, this is absolutely what we're going through to a T.
Yeah.
It was amazing. And the last thing she said that kind of stuck with me is, it's hard to be negative when you're grateful. And that a quick way to get rid of negativity is to allow people to be gracious. I said, okay, how do we do that? So the first year, it was Josh Bobek. The year after that, Josh Bobek's first year, the band really took off. It was awesome. The kids were loving it. And then we beat Yale on that throw interception safety. It was nuts, and everybody went crazy. And our kids literally said after the game they appreciated the student section. They appreciated the band. They appreciated the cheerleaders. So they kind of thanked them on their own. And the next year, that winter, I guess, we do our leadership training every year. And we asked guys how they wanted to show, that was one of my big things to say, you figure that out. How do you show support to your supporters? And they said, can we high-five the band and the cheerleaders after the game? I said, sure. And so I talked to the coach, I talked to Bobek, and I said, can we do this before? Because I don't want to interrupt what he does.
Right.
He said, sure, we'll stop here. We'll do this every time. And so they run down, and They go down and up, and everybody gets high-fived, and it's cool.
Yeah, it is cool.
And the band now feels part of something. So they're, I want to say a little more supportive, but a little more connected, which always helps in the process.
Yeah,
the cheerleaders feel more connected, and everybody kind of feels like they're part of something bigger than just their team.
Well, and I think it goes even a step farther. It promotes that school spirit. Again, you talk about that connection. Like this last game, we moved our student section, unbeknownst to me, but actually I love the idea where the student section moved next to the band. And it was like one giant just rockin' party up there. They were loud. They were obnoxious, in a great way, not in a bad way.
They were.
The band was playing and the student section was supporting the band. The band was supporting the student section. I mean, it really was awesome. And, again, I think some of the things like you implementing that where, you guys, thanking the band and the cheerleaders after the game, and again, win or lose, it's hard to do when you lose a game to want to go and, do something like that. But our kids are great about it. And I think there's that, again, that connection that brings, the cheerleaders, the band, and the student section, all together with the team. So I appreciate that. I think it's a great thing. So, so let's do this. Before we wrap up, what I'd like to do is let's run through the last 4 games real quick, and let's just let's just look. You got a tough road here. It's not going to be easy.
It's not easy.
But let's just a couple of keys to each game that that's going to help you win.
Almont is watching film. Almont is very talented. They look big, strong, fast, and disciplined. When we go into that game, we're going to have to do our part right, and we're going to have to be willing to get really uncomfortable. Our D line is going to get double teamed. Our linebackers going to have to fight off blocks. Our O line is going to have to fight guys that just want to run right through them and find a way to get them to move somewhere else. Our running backs are going to have to go through tacklers to get a couple extra yards. Our receivers are going to have to make tough catches. And Eric's going to have to throw. Eric and Keegan and Connor are going to have to throw passes into probably some small windows. Elmont's a very talented team. But one of the things we come in is saying, okay, what do we do that can help us win that game, and what do we have to do better to help us win that game? And one of the things that I said to the kids is control the things you can control. Control your effort, control your discipline, control your focus, control your technique. And if you control all that stuff, winning and losing will take care of itself. And sometimes you can do things right and still lose games. Sometimes you can do things wrong and still win games. But, that part, that discipline for me is go control the things you can control.
Right.
And continue to control them and fight through and find a way to, when things aren't going well, find a way to fix it on your own without abandoning your technique. And that's a hard one for young kids to do, to think, well, it didn't work last time. Why would it work this time?
Right.
But now I'm doing something that I've never done before, so I don't know the ins and outs of it, and it gets really hard.
Right.
So that's going to be a tough one. Croslex, their quarterback, is super, super talented. They spread the ball over the field. They run the ball well. They bring pressure on defense from the film I've seen. That's going to be another tough one. I'm sure we're their homecoming game just that time of year. So we're gonna deal with that, and going on our road trip and going up to Croslex is never an easy thing to do. They have lots of fans that are rowdy and loud, and they have a very talented football team. So we're gonna have to bring our A game, and I can give you way more information when we get a full scouting report on that. I've seen a couple things in Algonac. Another team that's way better than their record shows. I don't. The one game I saw, they won. Sorry, I saw 2 games. They lost to Richmond on a field goal, and they beat Inlay City 14-6. And that's another team that if you decide that you're just not going to play your technique and be disciplined, they will exploit it over and over and over again. And they have the talent to just score points left and right and stop you left and right. So it comes down to, you got to win some one-on-one battles against all these teams, and you're going to have to be disciplined. And if winning one-on-one battles means that you're undisciplined, they're probably going to win. And if they're undisciplined and we're disciplined, maybe we win that battle, even though we probably should. That's kind of that deal is like, football is an amazing sport. It really is. Because,
it is, yeah.
Because that little guy who's just full of energy, that might be 5'6", can just absolutely wreak havoc on an offense. Playing D-line, just shoot in there and be lower than everybody. I mean, you look at what Romeo won state championship. They had a bunch of, I think the tallest one was 5'10". And they weren't 300 pounds. They were small, quick, aggressive, strong kids. And so I think football is this amazing thing where big guys can do certain things and little guys can do different things. And you can do different things and take advantage of the kids you have to find success.
Mm-hmm.
And the hard part about that, though, is developing kids, because if you're changing systems every year, kids never get good at systems. So you have to try to massage everything in a way where it stays within your system,
right,
but it gives them something they can be successful at.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense.
And Marlette, they're tough every year.
Yeah.
They're big. They're strong. They always have a good athlete. In fact, the brother-in-law of one of our coaches is their stud wide receiver, who's very, very talented.
Yeah.
And, Denny up at Marlette always seems to have a few tricks up his sleeve and stuff that kind of catch people off guard.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems to exploit something that you didn't think was a weakness, but all of a sudden you find out it is a weakness. So that's one. Again, I have not seen a ton of film on Marlette, but I know what Marlette's going to bring, and I know what they're going to come to the game with. And so we need to be ready to play. And it's kind of the same story with all of them. They all bring a little bit different way of doing it, but it's pretty much the same story.
Yeah. Well, I know Marlette is usually traditionally has been a tough opponent for us. It's usually a good game. Been a good week 9 opponent for us. So, well, I really do appreciate you being here. I know you're busy. I know you got a lot going on between teaching at the high school and coaching varsity football. I can say this with full confidence. There's nobody that puts the time in you do. So as a coach, and I appreciate that as an athletic director, and seeing what you do with the kids and how you handle the student athletes and the accountability that you put into these kids, in terms of what you ask for them and your expectations. Wins and losses, the results might not be there so far this year, and we still have some time to go. But I still think that you and your coaching staff are doing a great job. So, and when I talk to the kids want to play for you. So that's
we're moving in the right direction.
That's half the battle. Yes,
we're
absolutely.
In the right direction.
So, just a couple of things before we close. I just wanted to mention on his schedule with varsity football. We have again this Friday, September 28th. We have Elmont coming to Armada, and that is our homecoming game. So on Friday afternoon, you'll see the homecoming parade go through town, and that game starts at 7 p.m. Another thing to note, on October 5th, we mentioned that we will be going out to Croswell, Lexington for that game. That's their homecoming. We will be putting a list up in the high school office for any student athletes who are interested, or not student athletes, but any student who wants to ride a fan bus out. We'll have a sign-up sheet for that. We're going to try to put together a fan bus to get a bigger student section than what Croslex has out there. And then the last thing to note here on the schedule, on October 12th, we have Algonac at Armada, and that night will be our cancer game. The Armada Athletic Boosters will be sponsoring a cancer game to raise money, obviously, for that horrible disease, but a great cause for the teams coming together to play and make some money to donate. So we're very appreciative of the boosters for putting that together. So outside of that, we hope to see you at some of the final games we have here. We have 2 more home games, and if you feel like traveling, we'd love to see you at the away games. I know Coach Stump and the student athletes would love to have you out there. So until we see you next time for Tiger Talk, I want to thank you for joining us, and have a great week.